You ever drive past a pond that looks just like this? Kind of simple, right? Maybe even a little peaceful. But beneath that calm surface, there's a whole complex living system that's working really, really hard. And just like any living thing, well, sometimes it gets sick. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret life of these ponds. We're going to learn how to diagnose what's going on just by looking for the clues.
So, what does it take to keep this whole system humming along? Well, think of what we're doing here as a complete health checkup for a treatment pond. We're going to be the doctors, right? We'll look for the symptoms, diagnose the problems, and then figure out the cures for a system that's clearly in distress. And here's our game plan. First, we'll get to know the pond as a living system. Then, we'll do a full physical checkup. After that, we dive into its internal health, check its vital signs, and we're going to wrap it all up with a really important section on safety for the folks who actually manage these places.
Okay, first up, the living pond system. Look, it's really easy to see a treatment pond as just, a big hole full of water. But it's actually this delicate biological balancing act. Our whole goal here is to learn how to read the signs, to know when that balance gets thrown way off. So what does a healthy pond look like compared to a sick one? A healthy one? It's a well-oiled machine, a balanced ecosystem, great circulation, stable vitals. But when things go south, that pond sends out some pretty clear warning signs. We're talking about nasty odors, gross scum forming on the surface, or even a total color change to this sickly yellow or a dull green or even gray. Those are the symptoms we're here to investigate.
All right, let's start our diagnosis with a physical checkup. We're going to focus on the most obvious stuff first, the pests and weeds that you can see right there on the surface and around the banks.
Now, what's really cool here is how a simple observation points you right to the cause and the solution. So you see a bunch of unwanted weeds, that's almost always a sign of poor circulation or that the water is just too shallow. And the fix? It can be as simple as pulling them by hand or just mowing them down. What if you see signs of burrowing animals, like muskrats? Well, that just means the banks are a little too inviting. The solution is to make it less attractive, take away their food, or mess with the water levels so they can't get comfortable.
And check this out, this is one of the most clever, low-tech engineering tricks for getting rid of weeds in cold climates. It's awesome. You just lower the water level in the dead of winter, let the surface freeze solid right around the weeds, and then you raise the water level back up. That giant sheet of ice acts like a lever, and as it floats up, it literally rips the weeds out, roots and all. So simple, but so incredibly effective.
Okay, the physical exam continues, right at the water's edge. Banks are all overgrown. That's usually just a classic sign of poor maintenance. A little regular mowing will fix that right up. And if you see that nasty scum on the surface, it's often because of bad circulation or sludge bubbling up from the bottom. And a surprisingly common fix is to just drive a motorboat right through it. Seriously, it breaks up the scum and lets most of it get oxygen and sink back down where it belongs. So, we've checked out the pond's exterior. Now it's time to look a little deeper. We need to check its internal health by taking a look at its chemistry and its biology. Specifically, we're talking about odors and algae. If a pond smells bad, it's not just unpleasant, it's a huge diagnostic clue. That rotten egg smell, it's often a sign that the pond is just overloaded. It can't process all the waste that's coming in. It could also mean there's poor circulation, or even something as simple as a long stretch of cloudy days, which messes up all the natural processes. So, what's the prescription for a smelly pond? Well, one of the first-line treatments is to add sodium nitrate. It's basically a way to give the system a direct shot of oxygen. And the recommended dose is super precise, 112 kilograms per hectare. They'll often apply it right in the wake of a motorboat just to make sure it mixes in really well. But of course, just adding chemicals isn't the only answer. The real key here is all about oxygen and mixing. You can install mechanical aerators, you can recirculate treated water back to the beginning, or even just stir things up with a motorboat. The goal is always to get things moving and get more oxygen into that water. But, and this is the most important part, you have to fix the root cause, like stopping high-strength industrial waste from ever getting into the system to begin with. Okay, another major red flag for a pond's internal health is when you see this stuff, cyanobacteria, also known as blue-green algae. When you see a bloom of this, it is a massive signal that something is seriously wrong. It means the pond is probably overloaded, the treatment isn't working right, or the whole nutrient balance is just completely out of whack. So how do you treat it? Well, you've got a whole toolkit of options. Mechanically, you can just break it up with a motorboat.
Biologically, you could introduce some shade or even add plankton and fish that just love to eat algae. It's also recommended to stock the pond with gambusia. They're called mosquito fish, and they help control other pests. Now, chemicals like copper sulfate are an option, but this is critical. You absolutely must get regulatory approval first because that stuff can be toxic to the rest of the ecosystem. All right, now we get to the heart of our diagnosis. We're checking the pond's vitals. It's just like when a doctor checks your heart rate and your blood pressure. A pond operator checks its dissolved oxygen, or DO, and its pH. These two numbers tell you everything about the real-time health of that ecosystem. First up, dissolved oxygen. It is exactly what it sounds like. It's the amount of oxygen just sitting there in the water, available for all those good waste-eating bacteria to breathe and do their job. And there is a critical threshold here. During the warm months, the daytime DO level should never, ever drop below 3.0 milligrams per liter. If it goes any lower, the whole system is basically suffocating. It's in serious trouble. The second vital sign is pH. This just measures how acidic or alkaline the water is. A healthy, happy pond should be just slightly alkaline. Ideally, it's sitting in that sweet spot right between 8.0 and 8.4. That specific range is perfect for the beneficial green algae that produce all that good oxygen. If you see the pH starting to drop, that's often your first warning sign that those helpful algae are starting to die off. And this right here shows us what happens when those vitals crash. Think of it like the pond's emergency room chart. You see a downward trend in DO, that could be a high load, some toxic waste, or maybe just not enough sunlight. The emergency response, cut the load and get oxygen in there, fast. What about a decreasing pH? That points to overloading or a massive algae die-off. The immediate response there is to bypass that part of the system completely until you can find the source of the problem. You know, we've focused this whole time on the health of the pond itself, but none of this is possible without the people who manage it. So we have to end with a really critical word on their safety. Because at the end of the day, these are industrial work sites, not public parks. I want to read this quote directly because the message is so incredibly important. It says, should a person fall into or jump into a pond, the presence of liners can make it extremely difficult to get out. Those clay or synthetic liners, they become unbelievably slick when they're wet. It's this hidden danger that makes falling in a potentially deadly situation. So the bottom line here is that safety is absolutely non-negotiable. The entire area has to be fenced with warning signs posted everywhere. Operators need the right protective gear, gloves, safety glasses, steel-toed shoes. Personal hygiene is huge. You have to wash your hands and face thoroughly before any breaks. And let's be crystal clear, any kind of recreational use, boating, skating, swimming, is strictly, and I mean strictly, forbidden. Wow, we've gone from a simple physical exam all the way to checking vital signs and covering life or death safety rules. We've seen that a treatment pond is so much more than just a pond. It's a complex, dynamic, and sometimes really fragile ecosystem. So I'm going to leave you with this question. The next time you see one of those simple-looking ponds, will you wonder about the secret life and that delicate balancing act that's happening just beneath the surface?